David, thank you for joining me. Can you give us a brief summary of the main points of the case and why the Dental Law Partnership decided to pursue it?
Right, there are two questions there. Firstly, why did we bring this claim? And secondly, what is the claim all about from a legal point of view? First of all, we wanted a legal precedent showing that practices are liable for the treatment that is provided at their practice. Because traditionally, claims are brought against the individual dentists, and there are a lot of difficulties associated with doing that. So we wanted a High Court judgment which declared that dental practices are legally liable for treatment that's provided in their name. So what are the advantages of bringing a claim against a practice rather than the individual treating dentist? I mean, back in the Victorian days, a patient would consult a dentist who would provide treatments for the whole course of treatment and for many years. And so the business model of the defence organisations was that they would indemnify the individual treating dentist. Fast forward 100 years to today, and the usual scenario is that a patient is treated by multiple dentists, even within a single course of treatment. And that creates problems. I mean, first of all, not all of the dentists may cooperate, they may not be indemnified, and may not be able to locate them. And also, they will be spread across 2 or even 3 defence organisations. And what those defence organisations will do is try to hive out the liability of their individual members. So the claim becomes fragmented, and so it's much easier for a patient to bring the whole claim against the practice. So it's not dissembled by the defence organisations. So that's why we brought the claim to show that the practice is liable. What was the case all about? Well, you'll be aware that it was about well, there are 2 legal rules. Firstly, non-deliverable duty of care, and secondly, vicarious liability. And in effect, the court held that a dental practice has exactly the same liability to its patients as a hospital, and that's right and intuitive. Dental practices had been asserting that they're different to hospitals, and that they're merely referral agencies to the treating dentists, and the associate dentists are actually providing running their own practices and providing treatment. All a dental practice is, they say, is a referrer. Now that clearly doesn't come even close to the reality, and the court dismissed that argument and accepted that a dental practice had assumed a responsibility directly to the patient to provide a service, that is NHS dental services, and it doesn't matter who actually carries out the treatment. The practice has assumed that responsibility, and so the liability is retained by the practice. So that's why it's called a non-delegable duty, because the duty, the liability, cannot be delegated to the actual performer, that is the associate dentist. The other legal rule that was dealt with was vicarious liability, and that's what all the talk has been about. Because associates are self-employed, dental practices have said we're not liable. They're self-employed, they're independent contractors. And that's what the question was, whether they were really independent contractors, whether they were running their own business, or whether they were simply operating within the business of the practice. And what the court held was that, of course, associates are treating patients that belong to the practice. The associate agreement makes clear that the patients belong to the practice, the goodwill belongs to the practice, so it couldn't sensibly be asserted that associates are running their own practice. So those are the two legal rules, and they come together to make it quite clear that dental practices are liable for the treatment that's provided.
Okay, so you raise a couple of things there, David. I mean, just rewinding a bit, you decided to go after the practice in this instance, despite the associate coming forward and saying that they're willing to go to court about this. So why in particular did you go after the practice and not the person, the treating dentist?
Well, first of all, at the time that we identified the claim to the practice, the whereabouts of the associate dentist was not known. But you're quite right. We pursued the practice in preference to the individual associates for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. It turns out that in this case, the individual associates are all indemnified by dental protection. Often that is not the case. So it was important to obtain a precedent ruling, showing that the practice is liable.
Okay, so do you feel, in your opinion, do you feel it's fair to start chasing people retrospectively? Because obviously when this patient was being treated, vicarious liability wasn't something that the dentists were covered for. So do you feel it's fair to start chasing dentists retrospectively for this?
If you're asking me whether it's fair, whether a practice owner should be liable for treatment that is provided at his practice, the simple answer to that is yes. The practice is a business. The practice owner is making a profit, whether it's NHS dentistry or private dentistry, and like any other business, should be responsible for the quality of the service that they provide. So quite simply, yes, it is fair that a practice owner is responsible for the dental services provided.
But in response to that, David, is it practical for a principal or for a dental practice owner to go through all the work that their associates do, to see all the patients that their associates are treating in the practice?
No, and that's not what has to happen. Because a practice is running a business, the services that business provides, the practice must be liable for that. It's obvious that any business providing a service cannot stand over and observe the individual performance of the service, and that's not required to attach liability.
Okay. So you've been quite critical of discretionary indemnity. Do you still feel that this has a place in dentistry?
I think the days of discretionary indemnity are certainly numbered. It's a flaky indemnity cover. Discretion is only used in one direction, that is to refuse indemnity cover or to withdraw it after it's been provided. So patients and practice owners need the certainty of contractual indemnity cover. It's long since had its day and it's unfit for purpose.
Okay, and so now what will happen? What are the implications of this judgment for dental practitioners and practice owners?
Well, I don't think that it's going to affect day-to-day dental practice. This only affects how claims are brought when there's been bad dentistry and a patient finds themselves in a position of having to bring a claim. The claim is more likely now to be brought against the practice who is responsible for the provision of the treatment, rather than the individual treating dentist. But the practices will be indemnified, so it won't really adversely impact on the practice of dentistry.
So the practices will have to get indemnified now. So they'll have to get.
And indeed, they are now. Yeah, each of the defence organisations are providing cover to dental practice owners, in relation to treatment provided by their associates.
Okay.
Long time coming, but it's here.
Okay. So, and what will happen with dental corporates and even NHS dentistry?
Well, dental corporates are a unique beast. Yeah. They have the demographic of their associates is that they are young and mobile. They work for a few years. A large proportion of them are foreign trained and will return back to their home country. And so it may be that when a claim is identified, the actual dentist who treated the patient long since gone. And I would imagine that most claims against dental corporates will be brought against the practice entity and not the individual dentist. That'd be much easier for patients.
Okay. So a lot of dental practices at the moment are feeling the pressure of COVID and austerity over the last decade or so. This no win, no fee culture that is creeping into dentistry. Do you feel that it's creating an impossible landscape to become an individual practice owner now in dentistry?
So I think I know where you're going with the thrust of the question, but are you sensibly asking whether a patient should not have redress if they have been provided with substandard dentistry? I think it's a given that they should be able to bring a claim, and no win, no fee enables a patient to do that because the cost of bringing a claim are prohibitive, and the defence organisations turned into an art form defending claims, even meritorious claims, and so it's only right that the playing field is balanced, and patients should be able to bring a claim. So, blunt answer to your question: do I think that no win, no fee is a bad thing and threatens dentists and dental practice? I don't, because patients ought to be able to bring a claim, and then, of course, dentistry prides itself on being a profession, and the hallmark of a profession is that it puts the interests of its patients first. That's the difference between a profession and a mere trade, apparently. And at the very time when the patient needs the profession to put its interests first, when dentistry has gone wrong, is the time when that putting the patient's interest first disappears. So patients need no win, no fee solicitors to fight their corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what would you say? I mean, you've kind of just mentioned this now, but what would you say to those people that do feel that this venture is you're just chasing the money and not actually trying to improve patient safety?
Well, that is a pejorative jibe that the defence organisations would throw out. What we're doing is representing patients and enabling them to bring claims where the treatment they've been provided with is substandard. I mean, who can argue against that?
Yeah, okay. So dental protection...
chasing the money when they charge for their services? Of course not.
Okay, so dental protection and Dr. Rattan have promised to continue this fight. So what is the next step? What happens from here?
Well, they have said that they're going to appeal the decision, and that's their right. So they now need to request permission from the Court of Appeal to appeal the decision.
Okay, and that's everything from me, David. Is there anything that you just wanted to add?
No, I think I've explained the nature of the claim. I must say I don't fully understand the shock horror of the profession. I mean, the dentistry is the only sector in which When a service has been provided that is a poor standard, the business entity that provides that service is not sued. If you have poor treatment in a hospital, you would sue the hospital. You wouldn't dream of suing the individual hospital practitioners. So why on earth should it be any different when a dental patient is injured in a dental practice?